face-off between the two presidential contenders that featured frequent interruptions. The Commission on Presidential Debates has announced new rules under which it will mute microphones for 2 minutes of the rival speakers so as to give them uninterrupted opening remarks. The third and final debate will be moderated by NBC News correspondent Kristen Owelka. And Donald Trump's re-election campaign lashed out at the Commission on Presidential Debates about the topics and potential rule changes for the president's final face-off against Joe Biden. In-person early voting for the presidential election has been underway in the United States for weeks now and began recently in several major Democratic-leaning metropolitan areas. It is 12% of the turnout of 2016 that has already voted, and with a fortnight still to go for Election Day, poll pundits predict that a record 150 million votes may be cast this year, and turnout rates could be higher than any presidential election since 1908. Like the rest of the state, North Texas counties are seeing an avalanche of early voters. Dallas County reporting nearly 23% of registered voters had already cast a ballot. Tarrant County's figures at 22%, while Collin and Denton counties both reported more than 30%. The latest CBS News Battleground Tracker poll shows Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden leading in the key states of Arizona and Wisconsin. And as millions of Americans continue to cast their ballots in early voting, the polls have finally caught up to most of the biggest news events around the campaign. They've found Joe Biden still holding a commanding lead nationally, though down slightly from last week and leading in 10 of the 12 swing states. But Trump regained a slight polling average lead in Ohio and ate a big chunk out of Biden's leads in Pennsylvania and Minnesota. An angry President Trump has come out swinging against Dr. Anthony Fauci. The press and polls that show him trailing Joe Biden in key battleground states in a disjointed closing message 2 weeks before Election Day. Coronavirus infections have surged by almost 17% across the country, with numbers increasing in 38 states and Washington, D.C. To date, the U.S. has the highest COVID-19 case count and death toll of any country in the world. Dr. Anthony Fauci says he would prefer not to comment on the president's code and called all that other stuff a distraction. The pandemic has already claimed almost 220,000 lives, and the case rate has surpassed 8 million positive cases in the United States, which are all very grim milestones. And as the global coronavirus cases cross 40 million, the United States, India and Brazil remain the worst affected countries in the world since the pandemic began. Over 1.1 million people have died due to COVID-19, with the global fatality rate hovering around 2.8% of the total cases. U.S. Senate Republicans are preparing to bring up legislation to replenish a program that helps small businesses slammed by the coronavirus as House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin discuss a larger stimulus package. Every Town for Gun Safety, the gun control advocacy group founded by former New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg, is spending $4.4 million on ads in 6 battleground states in the final weeks of the presidential election. The group is spending a total of $60 million on ads in the 2020 election races in Texas. Every Town is running $20 million worth of ads attacking Republican candidates in the state's 22nd and 24th congressional districts over their support for gun rights. And another $1.4 million has been devoted to flipping state legislators in Texas, Arizona, North Carolina, Iowa, and Minnesota. A total of 120,000 posts on Facebook and Instagram have been withdrawn for attempting to obstruct voting in the United States presidential election, and 2.2 million ads have been rejected. Wasting no time, the Senate is on track to confirm Judge Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court by next Monday, charging towards a rare weekend session as Republicans push past procedural steps to install President Trump's pick before Election Day. Actor Jeff Bridges has announced on Twitter yesterday that he's been diagnosed with lymphoma. Although it is a serious disease, he says, "I feel fortunate that I have a great team of doctors and the prognosis is good. I am starting treatment and will keep you posted on my recovery," he continued to post. Conservative talk radio show host Rush Limbaugh says he's had a setback in his fight against advanced lung cancer. The 69-year-old said recent scans show some progression of cancer. In February, he first disclosed that he was sick. The following day, President Trump awarded him the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the nation's highest civilian honor, during the State of the Union address. And a magnitude 7.5 earthquake prompted a tsunami warning for a nearly 1,000-mile stretch of Alaska's southern coast, with waves over 2 feet at the nearest community as the threat subsided. The Department of Justice has announced charges against 6 Russian intelligence officers in connection with a series of majorly disruptive and destructive cyber attacks. And Canada is extending the agreement to keep the U.S. border closed to non-essential travel up to the 21st of November now, as announced by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. You're listening to the World News on Radio Caravan, and a senior White House official made an unusual secret visit to Syria for high-level talks aimed at securing the release of 2 Americans who have been missing for years amid the country's long civil war. Kash Patel, a deputy assistant to President Trump, went to Syria as part of an administration effort to secure the release of Americans overseas, including missing journalist Austin Tice. When the Taliban recently voiced its hope that Donald Trump would win a second term because he would withdraw U.S. troops from Afghanistan, it was a reminder that the 2020 U.S. election has big implications for the Middle East and, by consequence, for American national security. The Taliban have offered to protect Kabul residents from gun-toting robbers and kidnappers as the militants seek to take advantage of public anger at a surge in violent crime. Since last fall, the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad has been under constant attack by pro-Iranian militia, and now Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is threatening to shutter the vast complex if the Iraqi government can't protect it. A decade-long UN arms embargo on Iran that barred it from purchasing foreign weapons like tanks and fighter jets has expired, as planned under its nuclear deal with world powers. Iran reported its highest single-day toll of new coronavirus cases since the pandemic, with more than 5,000 new infections. And in a historic first visit by a Gulf Arab nation, a United Arab Emirates delegation has arrived in Israel this morning to cement the normalization deal signed last month. United Nations Security Council members called on Armenia and Azerbaijan to respect a new ceasefire during a meeting on the disputed region. And we do have more than 1,300 inmates who have escaped from the central prison of Beni in eastern Congo after an attack by rebels of the Allied Democratic Forces. And Egyptian archaeologists have unearthed another trove of ancient coffins in a vast necropolis south of Cairo. French police have conducted a series of raids targeting Islamist networks 3 days after the beheading of a history teacher. Madrid's regional authorities are evaluating whether a curfew is needed to curb a new wave of coronavirus in one of Europe's hotspots. And Singapore plans to roll out rapid COVID-19 tests for events such as weddings and business conferences as the city-state looks to further reopen its economy. The Philippine president has said he accepts responsibility for the thousands of killings committed during police operations in his crackdown on drugs, adding that he was even ready to go to jail. Indonesia has rejected this year a proposal by the United States to allow its P-8 Poseidon maritime surveillance planes to land and refuel there. And support is growing within India's government to formally start talk on a trade deal with Taiwan as both democracies see relations with China deteriorate. The incredible double super over win against the Mumbai Indians hasn't sunk in yet for the Kings 11 Punjab players, but it's time again to face another formidable opponent in table toppers Delhi Capitals in Dubai today. Only a few weeks before the players are due to start arriving, Cricket Australia is still negotiating with Queensland health officials over the quarantining of the India team ahead of their blockbuster test series. At least half of India's 1.3 billion people are likely to have been infected with the coronavirus by next February, helping slow the spread of the disease. India so far reported 7.55 million cases of the coronavirus and is second only to the United States in terms of total infections. But COVID-19 infections are decreasing in India, reporting 46,791 new cases and 587 deaths in the last 24 hours. Over 23% of Mumbai's COVID-19 cases are senior citizens above the age of 60 and 5% are children and teens. 2 terrorists were killed in an encounter in Pulwama today that began this morning. In this news out of South Kashmir, witnessing a second encounter in 2 days. The Zimbabwe cricket team has arrived in Islamabad today to play 2 limited over series against Pakistan. And hours after his arrest, retired captain Mohammad Safdar was granted bail by a judicial magistrate against surety bonds of 100,000 rupees in Karachi. PPP chairperson Bilawal Bhutto Zardari has condemned the arrest and said he was shocked to hear about the incident. Striking an unapologetic tone, PLMN leader Mohammad Safdar said that he will visit the mausoleum of Fatima Ali Jinnah on the 18th of October, the date of his visit that landed him in trouble every year, and raised the slogan, "Long live the mother of the nation." He was speaking to the media in Lahore and said he wanted to send a message to those that had called Fatima Jinnah a traitor by raising Madare Millat slogans during his visit to the mausoleum. And we do have Lahore Shahadra police registering a case against PMLN Vice President Mariam Nawaz, her husband, the retired Captain Mohammed Sardar, and other party leaders and workers for damaging public order by causing trouble for citizens, blocking roads, unnecessarily using loudspeakers and microphones, and violating coronavirus standard operating procedures in the run-up to the October 16th rally of the Pakistan Democratic Movement in Gujranwala. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is all that I have.